Hey everybody, it's Dan from Sager & Sons Automotive, 116 East 44th Street, Garden City, Idaho. Today we're working on a 2016 Ford Transit van, 350 HD XL with a high roof. Today we're doing the front brakes and rotors. Alright, let's get started here. First off, we have two 15mm bolts. We got one here, one here. Pop these guys out real quick. After we get these guys off, we're going to twist this caliper a little bit, push the piston in, and then it will make it easier to slide the caliper off. And would you look at that? Them suckers just started to go metal to metal. Oh boy. Then I like to use the brake pad with a pair of vice grips, the original, the C-clamp style. Put it up in here, put your pad in, adjust it so you get a firm grip, squeeze it, let it collapse. You'll have to do this a couple times, but it's pretty quick. Then what you want to do is you'll look in here. See how the piston's collapsing, both of them? Put it right in the center. Make sure you're pushing them evenly. You don't want one to pop out. Now watch. You look in here. We finish collapsing this pistons. Look right here. Make sure those pistons are flush with the housing. Make sure they're all the way in there. That way you have room to get your new pads in there and you're set. All good to go. Then what we're going to do is place the caliper in a safe spot where we're not tugging on the brake line. See, nice and free. We're not going to damage that soft brake hose. And we'll finish getting the caliper bracket off. And that consists of 1, 2, and that's a 21mm. And I like to use a good size breaker bar or good size ratchet that can handle the pressure, because these are on there pretty tight with a factory Loctite as well. I'm going to bust these loose. I always like to use my air or electric to run things in and out, and then, you know, we like to break them nice and smooth with hand tools for the most part. I'll slap the ratchet on here, buzz these little guys out of here. Then we want to go ahead and take the caliper bracket and lube all of our contact points and the slide pins so we get evenly worn pads and evenly distributed power to the brake pads itself, to the friction material. And you pull these out, you put some lube on them, because otherwise you get unevenly worn pads and whatnot. Here's the new rotor, direct from Ford. Isn't that weird? See how it's a 6-lug and it's a 5-lug hat? So it's a 2-piece rotor system. Makes a bit more work. We look in here, we have Torx bits that we have to get get this rotor apart, to get this hub assembly apart. You'll see the external ones, but you'll see back in here there is some T40s, 5 T40s right through here, and we got to get these guys out of there, and that will disassemble the hub. Then once we get the hub off, then we can unbolt the rotor hat, the 2-piece rotor hat here. So you look in there, there's 5 of them. We're going to get those guys out of there, and then we can disassemble the rotor hat and put our new rotor on there. All right, let's get the hub off. 5 T40s. We're going to use the new snap-on brushless 3/8 drive. I'm going to buzz them right out of there. Look at that. Well, would you look at that? Let's grab a little magnet. We're going to fish that. My mistake. For the hub bearing, it's T50. And for the rotor hat itself would be the T55. So hub bearing T50, hat T55. We'll get our external hat torques out of there. All right, let's speed this up a little, get these hub bolts out of here. And then once we get them, then you can see we can drop the whole hub bearing assembly down with rotor, and we can unbolt our hat.
What's the technical words for each one?
Here's the hub bearing.
High pressure injection pump. Yeah.
Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna flip this guy over. Now let's grab our T55 blue point, and we are going to get these rotor hat bolts out of here. Go ahead and slip the rotor off. Then what you want to do is you want to grab a wire brush, make sure all your mating surfaces are nice and clean, and we're going to slip this right back over. Alright, let's grab our wire brush, and we're going to go ahead and clean the hub rotor mating surface real good, so there's no bumps, lumps, debris, rust, anything like that. That's going to cause what they call a rotor runout issue, to where it has high runout. Basically, it will cause a pulsation in the brake system. Then we're going to grab our caliper bracket, and we're going to do the same thing to the contact points where the pads ride. We're going to get in here and clean this real good. See, you want to get all the debris out of there so the pads can ride freely and not cause uneven wear, top to bottom, inside or outside pad. We're going to go ahead and wire brush these really good. Then we're going to take our caliper brake grease assembly lube, and we're going to lube the slides real good. See, it's a pretty blue. I just like the color of it. Looks cool. But it's a very high temperature grease designed for brakes. So it stays in one place, doesn't melt, get all over the pads, cause more squeaks and moans and things like that. We're going to clean it up, make sure it's not getting all over the rotor. We're going to pull our slide pins out. Once again, this is for even wear on the pads, equally distribution on the brake pads itself. That way it can have a push and a pull effect. That way the pads wear evenly, properly applied pressure. I'm going to slide those back in, make sure they're nice and free. Do the same thing to the other pad or the other slide pin. Make sure it's nice and lubed. You don't need a ton, but you want it sufficient enough to where, you know, nothing's going to get seized up, and you're going to get a pad, one pad that wears 90% and the other pad that wears 10%, and then you're wondering why you're only getting half your pad life out of your brakes. That's one of the reasons, besides, you know, worn front end shocks, suspension, things like that. Let's go ahead and put our new rotor on the hub assembly. We're going to bolt it down. We'll line the holes up. And then we will take our T55s once the bolt holes are lined up and get all 5 of these suckers back in there nice and tight. We will torque it to the correct torque specifications. Put a little bit of Loctite on them, and we're going to run them down, and then we'll torque them. You can put it together, assemble it, hold your foot on the brake, and then hand torque it once you're done. Whatever works best for you, but just make sure you seat everything in a star pattern, clean everything well, and then torque everything to specification along with your lug nuts. It's always good to torque everything properly. Now once we've got our hub bolts back on there, we're going to go ahead and get our T50, and we're going to bolt our hub assembly back together with our rotor. Then we're going to grab the T50 with the bolt. We're going to push it through. You see how the bolt's sticking through the hub assembly itself. Line it straight up to the top. Find one of your holes. Slip your hub into the housing of the knuckle, of the steering knuckle. And we're going to let it hang there and line it up. We're going to gently thread this one bolt in and line everything up. Then we can start our other ones. Start it nice and slow, run it down. There we go. Now we can start fishing our other ones through. Either grab your magnet or stick them on the tip of the T55, or the T50 I mean. See, that's gonna work best for me. Start it, run it down. And like I said, we're going to torque everything to specification. Sometimes it's easier to stick the caliper on and then have somebody hold the brake for you, and you can do a good hand torque to it. So let's get everything assembled. Don't forget, after you get your brake calipers on, don't forget to pump that pedal up. You don't want to drop it down then go for a test drive and not have no brakes until you pump that pedal about, 5 to 10 times, depending on the system, how big it is, to fill those pistons back up and get it so it stops the vehicle. Now look in here, you can see we got all of our hat bolts, our hub bolts, everything's in and assembled. So now we'll go ahead and get this rotor cleaned up and put the caliper assembly back together. And that's about it. But I just thought I'd show there's a few different videos on the 350, and this one's a much different assembly than the other ones where you can just unbolt the hub or unbolt the hat off and then untake your rotor off. This one you have to actually unbolt the whole hub bearing assembly, then you can disassemble the hat, which is kind of a pain in the butt, especially when you charge for the easier one. And this one takes twice as long, But when you quote something, you stick to it. Here we are, we have all of our torque specifications. We're going to get this guy out. That way, after we place the caliper on here, we can go ahead and have somebody hold the brakes itself once both sides are back together and properly torque all of our hardware. And just like that, once we're all together, let's go ahead and get the torque specs out, torque everything down properly, and we are set to go. thanks for watching. This is Dan from Sager & Sons Automotive. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to learn more new cool tips and tricks and things you may not have seen.